Newfoundland is a large Canadian island off the east coast of the North American mainland, and the most populous part of the Canadian province of Newfoundland and Labrador. The province's official name was Newfoundland until 2001, when its name was changed to Newfoundland and Labrador. Long settled by indigenous peoples of the Dorset culture, the island was abandoned when visited by the Icelandic Viking Leif Erikson in the 11th century, who called the new land Vinland. The next European visitors to Newfoundland were Portuguese, Spanish, French and English migratory fishermen. The island was visited by the Italian John Cabot, working under contract to King Henry VII of England on his expedition from Bristol in 1497. In 1501, Portuguese explorers Gaspar Cortereal and his brother Miguel Cortereal charted part of the coast of Newfoundland in a failed attempt to find the Northwest Passage. On August 5, 1583, Sir Humphrey Gilbert claimed Newfoundland as England's first overseas colony under Royal Charter of Queen Elizabeth I of England, thus officially establishing a forerunner to the much later British Empire. Newfoundland is considered Britain's oldest colony. At the time of English settlement, the Baruch inhabited the island. According to 2006 official Census Canada statistics, 57% of responding Newfoundland and Labradorians claim British or Irish ancestry, with 43.2% claiming at least one English parent, 21.5% at least one Irish parent, and 7% at least one parent of Scottish origin. Additionally, 6.1% claimed at least one parent of French ancestry. The island's total population as of the 2006 census was 479,105. The island of Newfoundland is separated from the Labrador Peninsula by the Strait of Belle Isle and from Cape Breton Island by the Cabot Strait. It blocks the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, creating the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the world's largest estuary. Newfoundland's nearest neighbor is the French overseas community of Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, with an area of 108,860 square kilometers. Newfoundland is the world's 16th largest island, and Canada's 4th largest island. The provincial capital, St. John's, is located on the southeastern coast of the island. Cape Spear, just south of the capital, is the easternmost point of North America, excluding Greenland. It is common to consider all directly neighboring islands such as New World, Twilling Gate, Fogo and Belle Island to be part of Newfoundland. By that classification, Newfoundland and its associated small islands have a total area of 111,390 square kilometers. While there is archaeological evidence of ancient indigenous peoples on the island, it was abandoned when the Norse arrived from Scandinavia. Lanzo Meadows was a Norse settlement near the northernmost tip of Newfoundland, which has been dated to be approximately 1,000 years old. The site is considered the only undisputed evidence of pre-Columbian contact between the Old and New Worlds. If the Norse-Inuit contact on Greenland is not counted, the island is a likely location of Vinland, mentioned in the Viking Chronicles, although this has been disputed. The indigenous people on the island at the time of European settlement were the Baruch, who spoke an Amerindian language of the same name. Later immigrants developed a variety of dialects associated with settlement on the island: Newfoundland English, Newfoundland French. In the 19th century, it also had a dialect of Irish known as Newfoundland Irish. Scottish Gaelic was spoken on the island during the 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in the Corduroy Valley area, chiefly by settlers from Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia. The Gaelic names reflected the association with fishing. In Scottish Gaelic, it was called Ellen of Trogue, or literally, Island of the Cod. Similarly, the Irish Gaelic name Talimony Isc means, Land of the Fish. First inhabitants. The first inhabitants of Newfoundland were the Paleo-Eskimo, who have no known link to other groups in Newfoundland history. Little is known about them beyond archaeological evidence of early settlements. Evidence of successive cultures have been found. The late Paleo-Eskimo, or Dorset culture, settled there about 4,000 years ago. They were descendants of migrations of ancient prehistoric peoples across the high Arctic thousands of years ago. After crossing from Siberia via the Bering Land Bridge, the Dorset died off or abandoned the island prior to the arrival of the Norse. No known evidence suggests that Norsemen, who settled Vinland at Lanzo Meadows in 1006, encountered any other group of people on the island of Newfoundland. The term Skrælings for local people in the Icelandic sagas referred to one of the Baruch, the indigenous Dorset in Labrador, or Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia, though there is no evidence that the Norse penetrated into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. After this period, the Baruch settled Newfoundland, migrating from Labrador on the mainland. There is no evidence that the Baruch inhabited the island prior to Norse settlement. Scholars believe that the Baruch are related closely to the Innu of Labrador. The tribe became extinct during the colonial, although people of partial Baruch descent have been documented. Baruch means people, in their language, part of the Algonquin language family of many Atlantic coastal tribes. The tribe is now extinct, with evidence of its culture preserved in museum, historical and archaeological records. Shannon Dithert, a woman who was the last known full-blood Baruch, died in St. John's in 1829 of tuberculosis. Santu Toni was a woman of mixed Mi'kmaq and Baruch descent. Her father was a Baruch and mother a Mi'kmaq, both from Newfoundland. Santu died in 1919. The Baruch may have intermingled and assimilated with Innu in Labrador and Mi'kmaq in Newfoundland. Oral histories also suggest potential historical competition and hostility between the Baruch and Mi'kmaq. When Europeans arrived from 1497 and later, starting with John Cabot, they established contact with the Baruch. Estimates of the number of Baruch on the island at this time vary, ranging from 700 to 5,000. Later both English people and French people settled the island. They were followed by the Mi'kmaq, an Algonquin-speaking indigenous people from eastern Canada and present-day Nova Scotia. As European and Mi'kmaq settlement became year-round and expanded to new areas of the coast, the area available to the Baruch to harvest the marine resources they relied upon was diminished. By the beginning of the 19th century, few Baruch remained. Most died due to infectious diseases carried by Europeans, to which they had no immunity, and starvation. Government attempts to engage with the Baruch and aid them came too late. The Baruch were exceptionally hostile to foreigners, unlike the Mi'kmaq. The latter readily traded with Europeans and got established in settlements in Newfoundland. Conflict between Baruch and other peoples were documented in 3 cases, with another probable event. The first confirmed conflict occurred between Baruch traders and Portuguese explorers. The Baruch had previously traded with other Europeans and likely thought the Portuguese were similar. This event likely had no effect on Baruch and European relations. By the 19th century, the Baruch had no written language. The Baruch were known to have attacked an English settlement, and on another occasion, attacked an English fishing crew. At times, the Mi'kmaq may have had hostile relations with the Baruch, and at others peaceful relations. Through fur trade with the French, the Mi'kmaq had acquired guns and boats. Baruch trade with Europeans was much less common, and they relied on traditional bows and arrows, and other weapons in conflict. Newfoundland residents who claim First Nations ancestry are almost entirely Mi'kmaq. No known descendants of the Baruch live on Newfoundland today. European contact, colonization, and settlement. Newfoundland is the site of the only authenticated Norse settlement in North America. This archaeological site was discovered by Norwegian explorer Helge Ingstad and his wife, archaeologist Ann Stein Ingstad, at Lanzo Meadows in 1960. The site has been the subject of multi-year archaeological digs in the 1960s and 1970s. These have revealed that the settlement dated to more than 500 years before John Cabot. It contains the earliest known European structures in North America. Designated as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, it is believed to be the Vinland settlement of explorer Leif Erikson. The Norse stayed for a relatively short period of time, believed to be between 999 and 1001 AD. After the departure of the Norse, the island was inhabited by Aboriginal populations for nearly 500 years. In 1497, the Italian navigator John Cabot became the first European since the Norse settlers to set foot on Newfoundland, working under commission of King Henry VII of England. His landing site is unknown but popularly believed to be Cape Bonavista, along the island's east coast. Another site claimed is Cape Bald, at the tip of the Great Northern Peninsula. A document found in the Spanish National Archives, written by a Bristol merchant, reports that Cabot's crew landed 1,800 miles west of Dursey Head Island, which would put Cabot within sight of Cape Bald. This document mentions an island that Cabot sailed past to go ashore on the mainland. This description fits with the Cape Bald theory, as Belle-Isle is not far offshore. After Cabot, the first European visitors to Newfoundland were Portuguese, Spanish, French and English migratory fishermen. In 1501, Portuguese explorers Gaspar Cortereal and his brother Miguel Cortereal charted part of the coast of Newfoundland in a failed attempt to find the Northwest Passage. Late in the 17th century came Irish fishermen, who named the island Tallamanneisc, meaning land of the fish, or the fishing grounds in Irish Gaelic. This reflected the abundance of fisheries. In 1583, when Sir Humphrey Gilbert formally claimed Newfoundland as a colony of England, he found numerous English, French and Portuguese vessels at St. John's. There was no permanent population. Gilbert was lost at sea during his return voyage, and plans of settlement were postponed. On July 5, 1610, John Guy set sail from Bristol, England with 39 other colonists for Cooper's Cove. This, and other early attempts at permanent settlement failed to make a profit for the English investors, but some settlers remained, forming the very earliest modern European population on the island. By 1620, the fishermen of England's West Country dominated the east coast of Newfoundland. French fishermen dominated the island's south coast and northern peninsula. After 1713, with the Treaty of Utrecht, the French ceded control of south and north shores of the island to the British. They kept only the nearby islands of St. Pierre and Miquelon, located in the fish-rich Grand Banks off the south coast. Despite some early settlements by the English, the Crown discouraged permanent, year-round settlement of Newfoundland by migratory fishery workers. Thomas Nash was an Irish Catholic fisherman who permanently settled in Newfoundland despite English rule. He established the fishing town of Branch. He and his cousin Father Patrick Power of Callan, County Kilkenny, spread Catholicism in Newfoundland. This settlement attracted a major migration of Irish Catholic immigrants to Newfoundland in the early 18th century. By the late 18th century, permanent settlement increased, peaking in the early years of the 19th century. The French name for the island is Terre-Neuve. The name Newfoundland is one of the oldest European place names in Canada in continuous geographical and cartographical use, dating from a 1502 letter. It was stated in the following 1628 poem, a skeltonical continued rhyme, in praise of my newfound land. Although in clothes, company, buildings fair with England, Newfoundland cannot compare. Did some know what contentment I found there, always enough, most times somewhat to spare, with little pains, lesser toil, and lesser care, exempt from taxings, ill news, lawing, fear, if clean, and warmeth no matter what you wear, healthy, and wealthy, if men carefuller, with much more, than I will now declare. If some wise men knew what this were, they'd live no otherwhere. From the first book of Cabot, composed and done at Harbour Grace in Britanniola, anciently called Newfoundland by Governor Robert Hayman 1628. The European immigrants, mostly English, Scots, Irish and French, built a society in the New World unlike the ones they had left. It was also different from those other immigrants would build on the North American mainland. As a fish exporting society, Newfoundland was in contact with many ports and societies around the Atlantic Rim, but its geographic location and political distinctiveness isolated it from its closest neighbors, Canada and the United States. Internally, most of its population was spread widely around a rugged coastline in small outport settlements. Many were distant from larger centers of population and isolated for long periods by winter ice or bad weather. These conditions had an effect on the cultures of the immigrants. They generated new ways of thinking and acting. Newfoundland and Labrador developed a wide variety of distinctive customs, beliefs, stories, songs, and dialects. The First World War had a powerful and lasting effect on the society. From a population of about 250,000, 5,482 men went overseas. Nearly 1,500 were killed and 2,300 wounded. On July 1, 1916, at Beaumont-Hamel, France, 753 men of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment went over the top of a trench. The next morning, only 68 men answered the roll call. Newfoundland lost about 1/4 of its young men in World War I, which had lasting effects on that generation and the next. Even now, when the rest of Canada celebrates the founding of the country on July 1, many Newfoundlanders take part in solemn ceremonies of remembrance. World War II also had a lasting effect on Newfoundland. In particular, the United States assigned forces to the military bases at Argentia, Gander, Stephenville, Goose Bay and St. John's. Newfoundland and Labrador is the youngest province in Canada. Newfoundland was organized as a colony in 1825, was self-governing from 1855 to 1934, and held Dominion status from 1907 to 1949. In late 1948, the population of the two colonies voted 52.3% to 47.7% in favor of joining Canada as provinces. Opposition was concentrated among residents of the capital St. John's, and on the Avalon Peninsula. Newfoundland joined Canada on March 31, 1949. Union with Canada has done little to reduce Newfoundlanders' self-image as a unique group. In 2003, 72% of residents responding identified first as Newfoundlanders, secondarily as Canadians. Separatist sentiment is low, though, less than 12% in the same 2003 study. The referendum campaign of 1948 was bitterly fought, and interests in both Canada and Britain favoured and supported Confederation with Canada. Jack Pickersgill, a Western Canadian native and politician, worked with the Confederation camp during the campaign. The Catholic Church, whose members were a minority on the island, lobbied for continued independence. Canada offered financial incentives, including a baby bonus for each child in a family. The Confederates were led by the charismatic Joseph Smallwood, a former radio broadcaster, who had developed socialist political inclinations while working for a socialist newspaper in New York City. His policies as premier were closer to liberalism than socialism. Following Confederation, Smallwood led Newfoundland for decades as the elected premier. He was said to have a cult of personality among his many supporters. Some residents featured photographs of Joey in their living rooms in a place of prominence. Pre-Confederation and current provincial anthem. The pre-Confederation and current provincial anthem is the Ode to Newfoundland, written by British colonial governor Sir Charles Cavendish Boyle in 1902 during his administration of Newfoundland. It was adopted as the official Newfoundland anthem on May 20, 1904. In 1980, the province re-adopted the song as an official provincial anthem, making this the only province in Canada to officially adopt an anthem. The Ode to Newfoundland is still sung at public events in Newfoundland and Labrador. Flags of Newfoundland. The first flag to specifically represent Newfoundland is thought to have been an image of a green fir tree on a pink background that was in use in the early 19th century. The first official flag identifying Newfoundland, flown by vessels in service of the colonial government, was the Newfoundland Blue Ensign, adopted in 1870 and used until 1904, when it was modified slightly. In 1904, the crown of the Blue Ensign was replaced with the Great Seal of Newfoundland, and the British Parliament designated Newfoundland red and blue ensigns as official flags specifically for Newfoundland. The red and blue ensigns with the Great Seal of Newfoundland in the fly were used officially from 1904 until 1965, with the red ensign being flown as civil ensign by merchant shipping, and the blue being flown by governmental ships. On September 26, 1907, King Edward VII of the United Kingdom declared the colony of Newfoundland as an independent dominion within the British Empire, and from that point until 1965, the Newfoundland Red Ensign was used as the civil ensign of the Dominion of Newfoundland, with the Blue Ensign, again, reserved for government shipping identification. In 1931, the Newfoundland National Assembly adopted the Union Jack as the official national flag, with the red and blue ensigns retained as ensigns for shipping identification. On March 31, 1949, Newfoundland became a province of Canada but retained the Union Jack in legislature, still designating it as the national flag. This was later reaffirmed by the Revised Statutes Act of 1952, and the Union Jack remained the official flag of Newfoundland until 1980, when it was replaced by the current provincial flag.